Hi, my name's Deb Wall. I'm the head of the Arts at Palabar State College. It's a P-12 school out in the Redlands, a state school. And first of all, I'd like to thank all our organisers and our panel today for your obvious passion. And the word entitlement for all our young people is very precious. And thank you for your work and continued efforts. And I think really fantastic that we've come so far. But our peak bodies and all their members need to stay on this ride to see it through in terms of, we've all been on the ride, some of us for a lot longer than others, in terms of making sure that curriculum documents are actually implemented over a long term and then get to be evaluated and resourced, etc. So I think our peak bodies now play a really important role in making sure we are resourced to make sure the employers make sure that our teachers have, so for example QCOT, are ensuring that our teachers are trained, that there's ongoing professional development and training, but there's also spaces in schools and the resources. And one of the little things that I was looking at, that in drama, which is an ephemeral art quite often, that that we make sure that our funded bodies are, for example, filming live performances that are of a very high quality that we can share throughout our states and territories. So we do get to see the very highest forms. Having had the wonderful experience of watching the National Theatre teleclass Phaedra last week, and I just thought how wonderful if, Out of the Box was, everything that's seen at Out of the Box becomes available for all of our students across the states and territories. So fantastic work so far, but still a long way to go, and let's all pitch in and make sure it continues. So we see it through. Thank you.
Thanks, Deb. I'll just take that one as a comment, and an important and wonderful comment.
Hello, my name is Michael Bay. I'm the head of faculty at St Joseph's College in Gregory Terrace in Brisbane. I'm also a drama teacher, but I'm speaking on behalf of all of the arts. We offer 4 of the strands at St Joseph's. We're a year 5 to 12 school. We don't offer dance. And I suppose this is a question specifically for John, I think. Perhaps other people can answer it. That relates to conversations that I've had with some of my colleagues from other schools. Sitting on a middle management committee that looks at timetabling and reaction to current demands from subjects such as history with the national curriculum, and the school is feeling a terrible pressure on time and being able to deliver an appropriate time for the subjects in years 9 and 10. And the immediate response was to look towards cutting time in the arts. And I had to be quite bolshy, and some of my colleagues have been quite bolshy within their other schools, where they have been speaking about the look towards what the demands from the national curriculum in the arts are going to be. And I think there needs to be a fairly explicit statement in that, because I don't think we can rely on schools to be generous in the amount of time that they give to the arts when they are feeling pressure in areas such as the history and geography and in the sciences. I'm
going to just give an ACARA and QSA, I'm just going to feed a little bit of that into that because I think it's a really important point. Then I'm going to ask John to speak to the 9 and 10 question about the development of the curriculum there as far as you can, John. ACARA will not be providing hours for schools, but they are going to provide in the next version of the Shape of the Australian Curriculum an overview with indicative guides for writing. So it's giving an indication of the depth that was considered by the writers in the approach. The arts will be included in that. So you'll see the arts within that whole picture. Now, that's not a timetabling guide, and that's been a really interesting conversation that's been happening with the QSA recently, working with principals across the state. So it's a very real conversation that's happening. The other significant policy that's emerging out of ACARA, which is not anything other than a proposition as yet, although I haven't got yesterday's information from Makija, so things may have changed slightly, is that there's a call for all. within ACARA's learning areas, and that call for all incorporates health and PE to Year 10 and history to Year 10. And that decision to have English, math, science, history, HPE for every young Australian to Year 10 does have implications for the way schools organise curriculum. It doesn't mean the arts, technologies, business subjects, second and third phase areas are necessarily in jeopardy, but it does mean this conversation will be had in your school. So being prepared for that conversation is a fairly significant thing. I'll just hand to John to reflect on the curriculum question.
Just briefly, Michael, I wish I could give you a reassurance about that. There will be a curriculum written which is going to be an open and flexible curriculum which will allow for connectivity, but will drive an agenda for each of the arts. Now, we can't legislate at ACARA that all schools are going to continue to privilege the arts, or that they're not going to be forces to undermine them. That's nothing new. I mean, what I'm saying is that you're going to have to, in the short term in particular, continue to be very vigilant at the moment. These waves to cut the arts happen periodically and have for the last 30 years. But we're all still here, and that's largely because we do continue to be vigilant, and because we have got the backup of very good curriculum documents, particularly in Queensland already. And if we can provide even better curriculum documents, or documents that are at least as good as the current Queensland ones, you will have a very strong platform to argue with. Now, I think we should distinguish between short-term and long-term here, because in the short term, yes, you're going to have to be, short and medium term, you're going to have to be equally vigilant. However, I have a vision, I have a dream this afternoon, or this morning, that entitlement of every child reaching the end of Year 8 having had some foundation in all the arts is bound to raise the profile of the arts across the whole schooling system. If any of you heard me stumbling to try and speak on Late Night Live a few weeks ago from a hotel room in St. Petersburg, I was struggling to get an answer to part of a similar question. And Philip Adams, the host of Late Night Live, made a wonderful analogy, which I think is worth remembering for us, that when he and his colleagues founded the Australia Council in the 70s, the net result, although there was a lot of bickering at the time about who gets most of the cake among the art forms, because this was, the Australia Council is strictly about money and time for the arts, the net result was that the profile of the arts in Australia, right across Australia, in the community, rose. The profile of all the arts. And that I'm convinced that once we've got kids, all children, knowing about the arts, their parents knowing about the arts, all having experienced it, it will be much harder for those people who would like to see us cut in Years 9 and 10 to do so. That's my vision.
Yes, Colin. Oh, sorry, behind you.
Hello, my name's Rowena Reek. I'm a PhD candidate at Griffith, and I'm examining the impact on mandated testing such as NAPLAN on the arts. My question is to Professor Barrett. In Queensland, we're privileged to have the 30-minute specialist music teacher at the moment, and I just want your thoughts on how, if the 2 hours, when it's mandated, how all that sort of works together as far as the logistics of non-contact time. Does that specialist maintain their position, or is it amalgamated? I'd just like your thoughts on that, please.
I would say that, remember, there are many people who make the curriculum, and that has been a Queensland state policy and shows Queensland's clear valuing of the arts and the arts forms. Whilst you heard from Joe that ACARA will not be mandating or dictating or prescribing hours in any way, it will then come down to systems to make those decisions. And I suspect that we will see slight differences across the country in the ways that different systems take up the impetus that is provided by the ACARA curriculum. I would hope that Queensland would continue the marvellous work it has been doing, and would also look at the ways in which it can use this national drive for a curriculum as a means of strengthening provision across all of the arts forms in Queensland for all children.
Julie, would you like to respond a little bit to the ongoing support for teachers in schools, the Peak Professional Association, how you're going to keep the story going?
Somebody's mentioned already the importance of the professional associations, and that is certainly one of our key focuses. Trying to provide information, resources. We're looking at, I've just been at the Youth Dance England conference in London, where they were fascinated with the ways in which Australia dealt with delivering curriculum in remote and regional communities, and it was lovely to hear Cindy talk a little bit about that. But I think professional associations do have a real responsibility, and one of those responsibilities is links with industry. And if we can strengthen those links and work to educate our professional artists and professional companies to work much more in partnership with what you're doing in schools, then I think we have a much stronger opportunity to deliver really meaningful curriculum, not something that is a tokenistic, just a little foundation start. I think we can build on that in a very significant way.
I also think your obviously members are associated with your professional associations in this state, and I think the political role and the advocacy role that those associations play is very significant. And Julie, leading the NAE, has been incredibly successful in maintaining the focus on those things. So with regards to the particular music question, it would be a great question to speak to the schooling sector that pertains to specifically, but it works across 3 schooling sectors, that there's diversity about those approaches. In other contexts, there are specialists in 5 art forms, P to 12. And that does happen, and happens quite a lot across the country. So the idea of one particular fantastic model, yes, absolutely must be maintained, but there's a whole lot of other really fantastic models out there, and it'd be great if this is an impetus to develop those as well.